Like, you don't want to show too much. There's that Winogrand quote that's like, how do you make a photograph more interesting than what actually happened? And with video and the growth of video, it's like you're actually showing what happened. The mystery is gone, especially when the video camera is mounted on top of your lens. What's the difference of me clipping that video and like showing that as a still? If you're a street photographer and you kind of do this day in, day out, you know that it takes more than 4 hours on one day to get a good photo. It could happen, but a lot of times it doesn't. We're not on a Hollywood set, we're not making this up.
So welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of Eyeshot 50mm. And today we're sitting down with Paulie B. Paulie B is a photographer, filmmaker, creator of Walkie Talkie, a series on YouTube that really has turned street photography into a place of community, process, and what it means to be out there with a camera. Paulie, welcome to Eyeshot 50mm, and thank you for being with me today.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's such a pleasure.
And for everybody who's watching, I just want to leave a very small message to keep liking and keep subscribing, because again, what's a very small click to you, it definitely means the world for us to keep bringing you exclusive content. So let's actually dive in straight away. And the very first question I have for you, most of the people know you through Walkie Talkie. But before we talk about that, who is Paulie B as a photographer and a human?
As a photographer, that is a great question because I don't even know that question. I feel like I'm just somebody that likes to just go out and photograph, usually like candid moments on the street, but it's kind of just like wherever the energy kind of brings me. Some days it could be, I want to do something quiet. Some days it's something chaotic. A lot of joy. I think I like to photograph a lot of like good vibes, for lack of a better word. In terms of a human, that's also a good question. I'm a dad. I feel like I identify most as like I have 2 small kids, and I just like I'm a creative person. I've always been a creative person, but I'm also like very analytical. So like my background's in analytics, but then I've always done well in like the arts when I was in school, and that's kind of led me here.
And before New York and before Walkie Talkie, what first made photography necessary to you?
I don't know. I was always just kind of interested in it. Like growing up through like high school and stuff, like photography was always like a hobby. It wasn't like a main hobby, but it's something I always like looked at as something I wanted to get into. I was in high school and college in like the blog era, Tumblr era. So everybody's taking photos of like things and like making it look real cool on their own like Tumblrs or blogs. And that's something I kind of want to get into. And then eventually I got my hands on a camera. I think my wife got into photography or tried to get into photography. And then I was using her camera to walk around DC where I lived at the time. And that turned into Chicago, and that turned into New York, and then turned into street photography somehow, some way. And then, and now we're here taking pictures of people on the street.
We could say that you're a self-taught because you don't really have much of a background, like academic background, of course. So I wanted to ask you, what photographers' books encounter have in some way influenced the way you do photography, or your approach or idea of street photography?
Yeah, honestly, it's probably just being around other photographers. And I think that's one of the perks of being in New York City is that you run into so many different photographers, and you get to see in real life how they photograph and what they photograph when they post it on Instagram. Like, oh, that's how we took that photo. And you can do that, over and over and over and over again, because the number of photographers you run into here is unlimited, because people stop, people start, people stop, people start. You run into somebody else that you've never seen before, and you're like, oh, that's interesting. And that kind of also leans into them telling you about photographers or photo books that they're into. And then you pick up that, and then you kind of add that into like your own repertoire of like things that inspire you. So it's really just the community and being part of it. Like when I was in Chicago, like there was a very small number of street photographers. And while it was super helpful to like get their knowledge, just being around an exponential number of photographers, I feel like helps you grow faster than being in like a smaller group or community.
A lot of your work is rooted, as you've been saying, of course, in being outside, walking, observing, returning again and again to also the same places as well. And you have describe photography as a way of being out in the world. So for you, is photography more about the final image or the state of attention that makes the image in the first place?
I would say, and this is something I always had to remind myself. I always say that photography is more about the input than the output, or it should be more about the input than the output. Because at the end of the day, a lot of people, I would say 99.9% of street photographers aren't doing this as a career. So the output isn't really, I mean, it's important, but like the input in terms of like, you're doing this to have fun. Like you're doing this to have joy. You're doing this because you enjoy doing it. And if you're so hard on yourself on what you get, it's like that brings that joy down. So if you focus more on the input, then it'll be more of an enjoyable experience for everybody, hopefully, you know? And like I always get down sometimes, like if I go weeks, maybe a month or months of like not getting a solid photo that I love. But it's just you gotta step back and be like, you know, as long as you're outside, like, and you continue to enjoy hitting that shutter button, then it's all good, I think.
No, it totally makes sense. One thing I want to touch upon in terms of photography, there is a lot of talk in the decisive moment, this moment that happens perfectly and etc. But your work, and I feel like Walkie Talkie kind of suggests something more continuous in a way. So do you believe in the decisive moment, or has that idea become kind of a myth in your experience?
I mean, I feel like there is like a decisive moment, but maybe there's multiple decisive moments. You know, maybe it's like it also depends on the photo you're trying to get. You know, if it is like a gesture, then there is a decisive moment. But if it's like trying to take a photo that captures really encapsulates the energy of somebody, then it's more about like sitting connected with that person and trying to like get multiple photographs that kind of explain or translate what that person is or what a scene is or what a place is or what a body of work is. And it's not just one singular little thing that happens like 500 steps at a time.
Okay. And still in terms of like an approach and vision, y- you live in New York, you practice in New York, and I feel like you're like a drop in the ocean in terms of like how many people are there that you could photograph and everything. So some street photographers believe in this concept of invisibility. Some instead feel like that their interaction or their presence could in a way be part of the final scene. Where do you stand on this?
I think you can kind of bounce between the both sides. Like every situation calls for a different approach, right? There's some situations where like you don't want to be seen. There's some situations where you like there's no way you can get that photograph unless you kind of approach. So like how to you have to know how to like shoot a jump shot and how to shoot a hook shot, you know, at the same time. You know, you can't just be a one-dimensional person when you want to have different types of photos. So I feel nowadays I more prefer like approaching people and like interacting with them. Whereas like it'll be a situation where I want to approach somebody and after approaching them, I think I can become a fly on the wall and then they continue to do what they were doing when I approached them. Like if they're doing some kind of action or activity, like I'll like walk up and be like, yo, what's going on here? And then like talk to them a little bit and then like, all right, well, all right, continue to do. I'm just gonna take some pictures, and then they're just like doing what they're doing, and then I'm just there, and they kind of forget about you.
Yeah, which is something that not always happens. I feel like confrontation is also a big part of street photography. Fear, run, like it's not always easy to shoot strangers, and there is all an ethics on subjects and everything. So yeah, and it's for sure a mix of both. And you've been photographing New York for such quite a long time, and again, New York is one of the most I feel like photographed city in the history of street photography. So how do you deal with this? Like, does that make it easier to photograph or harder to do?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know. I don't think it should affect the way that I photograph. It does. I feel like it does, but I don't think it should. I feel like it should be like, am I enjoying going back to the input versus output? Is like, am I having fun? Am I having joy photographing this right now? And like the external factors shouldn't really play a part in that.
And when you
But
say it does, like, what do you mean? Like, how does it affect you?
it's I don't know. It's just like I'm a very competitive person, so internally it's like
Yeah.
it's hard to like not compare yourself, but you should. That's
Okay.
another thing. It's like you shouldn't compare yourself because it's so subjective, but it's hard not to. Especially with this like game of like social media, everybody's putting out work, and it's like, oh, you see somebody post a photo, you're like, oh man, like I wish I could have got that photo, or like how could I not be there at that time? Like, I need to push myself a little more, and then there's a lot of internal like mental struggles of just seeing other people do great work, and I think like that dissatisfaction is something that you have to like internally work on yourself, and I think that's also a sign of growth and just, being an
Yeah.
artist.
And going back to what we were saying before about shooting strangers being in New York, as we were saying, like, there is a big topic of responsibility behind it. So where do you personally draw the line when shooting strangers? Like, how do you recognize the scene? Like, okay, I shot this, but ethically for you, of course, it feels kind of like wrong, and what instead can pass.
For me personally, I think every situation, I feel like homeless people is a big thing. Like, oh, do you shoot homeless people? It's like not purposefully. I
Mm.
don't like go out and be like, oh, today I'm going to go take photos of homeless people. But if like if they're an element to a scene, then I will. It's not like a hard no. I feel like nothing is really a hard no. If it adds to being a great or potential to be a great photograph, I guess there are things like I don't go up and like flash people in the face. That kind of photography. I kind of have more of like a empathetic approach to it where like I don't want to ruin someone's day. I don't want to be the reason someone's day is like, "Oh, man, I can't believe that person took my photo on the street, like, oh, they taking a picture of," like, I don't wanna
Yeah.
be that person, like, I'd rather, if I take a photo, quick little compliment or, like, if they wanna talk, I'll stop for a second and, like, glance over to see if they look back at me, and if they
Mm-hmm.
wanna talk, I'll talk about it. I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, I took a picture."
Okay, now instead let's move to Walkie Talkie because as I was saying before, you have created this series that has become a very visible space for street photographers, but also reveals something that sometimes it's not really out there, like failure or as we were saying before, process, community. And I wanted to ask you, there is a lot of street photography content on YouTube that feels very performance, so POV, quick hits, gear and stuff. When you started Walkie Talkie, what was your intent within this environment? How does Walkie Talkie fit in all of this?
When I started Walkie Talkie, I looked at what was on YouTube in like a street photography sense. And there may have been like a couple of channels here and there, but like overall, I feel the community and the way that that community photographed or the way that I photographed and saw photography, street photography specifically, wasn't really represented on YouTube. And I wanted to kind of rise the tide, lift all boats in a sense and show the YouTube audience, like this is actually like what's happening in like the mecca of like street photography. This is like the community. These are the people that are out. These are the people out day in, day out, like failing, trying, and like, shine that light, give that light to the people that are actually out here working, not necessarily to the people that are like trying to make YouTube videos,
Yeah.
people who are actually trying to make photos where it's like that's what they want to do and not, be a content creator.
Walkie Talkie also, as we were saying, reveals the process, but photography and street photography as well in general has also traditionally kind of protected a certain mystery behind photographs. So do you think that showing too much of a process could also in a way change how we value the photographs that we see?
Yeah, this is something I've been wrestling with semi recently is like you don't want to show too much. There's that Winogrand quote that's like, how do you make a photograph more interesting than what actually happened? And with
Yeah.
video and the growth of video, it's like you're actually showing what happened. Like like the mystery is gone, especially when the video camera is mounted on top of your lens. It's like you're just showing a clip. Like what's the difference of me clipping that video and like showing that as a still? Like if it's nothing, then like the photograph is kind of useless, right? And like I feel when you compare that to Walkie Talkie, Walkie Talkie is like, this is how this person photographs. not necessarily like how they photograph everything, because it's just like a 4-hour period on a specific day. And if you're a street photographer and you kind of do this day in, day out, you know that it takes more than 4 hours on one day to get a good photo. It could happen, but a lot of times it doesn't. A lot of times people don't even take a single photo on Walkie Talkie because
Yeah,
it's kind of just up to whatever happens, There's a good chance nothing happens. So a lot of times comments are like, "Yeah, I didn't even take a picture." It's like, well, that's not up to us. It's not. We're not on a Hollywood set.
of
We're not making
course.
this up.
And do you think then YouTube has helped then street photography, or has made it more performative?
I would say both, maybe. You know, when the tide rises, some people, you know, how do I answer this? I I've gotten a lot of messages of people saying that they started photography because of YouTube, and that's a great thing. Like that's great. But with people starting photography and whenever there is attention to be grabbed, there are going to be people who do it just for that attention. And that's just something that's like human nature. And you can't really stop, one or the other. It's just you kind of have to like respect the people that are doing it for the right reasons. And if you had somebody just start because of watching whatever video, like of this video or one of your videos, one of my videos, that's like you gotta take that win.
Okay. Okay. One thing that is interesting about you and your path and journey and everything is that you came up in a photographic culture that was shaped by social media, feeds, Tumblr and everything. So I want to talk about how this element has changed what photographers look for, share, and value. So my very first question is, do you think that Instagram has changed what street photographers are looking for when they're out in the scenes? Because there is a certain type of output that is requested by these platforms, or are they making them for themselves, for the street? For how do you think it is a logic that has some way infiltrated the way we do photography?
I think some people definitely take photos or go out to photos because of what they saw on Instagram. I think that's fine too. It's like, you kind of want to follow whatever you're inspired by. It's like going back to the previous question. It's like some people do it because a certain style of photo gets a certain number of attention or likes or shares or whatever. So they chase that style. Or if you see something on Instagram and you're like, "Oh, that looks sick. I'm gonna try to replicate that." That's more of like the pure way, because like there's no difference of like somebody picking up a book and saying, "Oh, I like this photo. I'm gonna copy that." As long as they're inspired by it, like go chase it, and then maybe that person will learn other things, other like artists along the way, and refine their style based on what like they see, whether on Instagram or Tumblr or like a photo book or wherever.
And to conclude on this, do you think personally, in your experience, of course, does being a content creator like help you survive pho- a- as a photographer, or does it sometimes take away energy from being a photographer?
For me, it adds because it allows me the flexibility to shoot when I want to, if I have the time. If I'm not, obviously there's a lot of things to do, but like if there's time, like I could be like, oh, I could push my work off till night. Whereas like if I have a 9 to 5, I got to be working from 9 to 5, and then there's no time after that because, like I said before, I've got 2 kids. So like if I had a 9 to 5 and kids, I would have zero time to take photos. Whereas now it's like this is like it's baked into my job. So I have to like keep up with this. I have to be good at this. I have to know what's going on. And to do that, I have to be out taking pictures. So it kind of like it helps me be outside, helps my practice in terms of like keeping up, you know?
Okay. Street photography is often presented as a, let's say, solitary practice somehow. But your work has shown again much community, friendship, dialogue, and everything like that. So do we need to rethink this second myth of the lonely street photographer or not?
I honestly way more productive when I'm alone. So, there's definitely truth to being alone is probably better. But there are times where you kind of just you need a buddy to like walk around with. And like there will be photographers that you meet and that you bond with along the way, that know your rhythms, that know how you photograph. they'll know when to like, interweave with the patterns of how you photograph. And that becomes like a kind of like a partnership. It's like, oh, I know this person's gonna photograph this. Like, I don't really want to photograph that, so I'm gonna step back and kind of let them take control. Or like, I know we're walking this way, but we could walk on opposite sides of the street and then kind of like meet at a certain point. We're not here to like hang out, but we're here to photograph. And then we can hang out when like, there's a downtime, or we're both in a lull throughout the day. So there's like different situations. But when it becomes like, you know, a group of people, that's when there's like no photography being done. It's just to hang out. And you got to realize like we're here hanging out, and if you want to photograph, you need to like figure out a way to leave that group. And like, no offense to the group or whatever, but like, you want to take photos, you know. Yeah.
We talked a little bit about this before, but I want to know a little bit more from you. Like, what if you exactly learn from watching other photographing in your work, not just from looking at their final images?
I think you just learn how to approach different things. It's like you just learn how to, if a situation calls for, interaction, you kind of learn what works, what doesn't work, and it's not always 100% what does work. You kind of learn how to, if I need to flash somebody in the face, you kind of see the reaction that you're going to get, and you kind of learn how to diffuse it because you see other people diffuse it, and then you kind of learn, in your own way what works, in your own language. So it's just like techniques, and using those techniques, and storing those. It's kind of like an RPG video game where it's like you kind of like store it in your backpack, and you're like, oh, now I'm going to use this, you know?
Okay, zooming out a little bit, street photography is also one of the most, we could say, accessible genre in photography, but also one of the most misunderstood. So, what do you think people get wrong about it? Or everything is clear?
Yeah, no, I don't. I don't say almost maybe nothing is clear. It's like I don't know what people get right about it. I don't know. I don't. Yeah, I don't even know how to answer that question.
Maybe from comments online, from what you've experienced on your
Yeah,
own work, or outside, maybe in the scene as well.
I just think maybe people don't understand how long it takes to get a photo that you like love. Like maybe 3 to 5 times a year, I'll have a photo that's like a 10 out of 10 in my mind. And like, that could be me on the street like 6 days a week, like 15 miles a day. I'm not sure what that conversion is in meters, but put that here for this many meters
Got
per
it.
day. Like 8 hour days, like just
Yeah.
walking and trying, and not necessarily failing. You'll get photos you like along the way, but like, I'm talking like photos that you want to print that'll go into something. Like, those are very rare, and I think people just don't know the amount of work it takes to get to that point. And like, some people will say, "What do you mean? I get so many photos per week." But it's like that bar changes the more you're out there, right? Like, the that bar of a good photo at year 10 is different than a good photo at year 1. Because you just, the goalposts move, and you're just like, you're sprinting at it.
Okay. And what are visual cliches that you cannot stand in street photography today, contemporary street photography?
I probably scrubbed those from my algorithm, so I don't really see a lot of them anymore. No, I don't even. I honestly, I think I've scrubbed all photography from my algorithm. I think the one that still, it doesn't irk me, but still, like, the tiny man in the distance photos. It's just like, like a long street, and there's like a person all the way at the end of the street, and then they like maybe have like an umbrella, and they're just like walking, and I'm just like, okay, repeatable ones. Like, oh, that's easily repeatable.
And are we then in, because we're living in a period of time where accessibility, it's everywhere and it's so easy from like also being a photographer, you don't really need a camera if you want to. Like there are so many things that we're going through right now. So are we in the golden age of photography, or are we just in an age of endless visibility?
Time will tell. I don't know if we can judge that at this time. It's like, when you're in the golden age, like back in like the 90s, like when Michael Jordan was playing, they didn't know that this was the golden age of like basketball, you know? Maybe they did. Maybe it was Michael Jordan, maybe they did. Who knows? But like, at the time you just have to like be aware of what's happening right now, see who's great and respect who's doing great work and try your best to keep up and enjoy it, who maybe if this is the golden age, that'd be something.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of access, like, I guess we could say it is a golden age. Like, everybody has a possibility to do what they love, for sure. At the same time, how does this affect the craft in its all sense, right? Especially now with AI generated images, like, again, what makes the real photographs?
Yeah, everything can be true. All of that could be true. Like if we talk about rising the tide, it's like if you think about photography in like 1960, where it's like a lot of people were making like probably good work, but there's probably a little people like I don't know, like when the bell curve rises, it rises on all aspects. Like it rises on all like crap photography being made, it rises good photography being made. And like maybe the bad photography being made is a little bit higher, but as long as that good photography rises too, then like I think it's a net positive, and it's up to, you know, the collective tastemakers of the collective photographers to really respect and cherish what's going on in terms of the good work that's being done. And that kind of changes, but even within street photography there's different genres of street photography. It's like like this kind of street photography is being being really celebrated right now, so let's respect it. Let's cherish what we have right now, because it might not be in 15 years, 5 years.
What do you think street photography needs less today, and what needs more?
I think street photography needs less talk about gear,
Why so?
less because for gear, it's just like find what you want to use and use it and get the photo. Enjoy what you use too. Yeah, should have that input, but it's like whatever you enjoy using, whether that's like a DSLR or like a mirrorless camera or a rangefinder camera. It's like it might not work for you. It might not work for this person, but use it, you know, try it. I think we need less POV videos. I think there's too many POV videos. It's like we talked about earlier. It's like you're showing too much. Like show less, figure out a way to show less, or show a different, like don't show me the exact frame you're going to show me with the photo. I feel like maybe we don't need more photo books. I feel like there's like a plethora, there's like so much photo books coming out. We don't need more zines. Maybe we just need more empathy. We just need more like, just let people work, People just need to work like time. I think we need more time. I think we need more time, because like the more time we have, the more time we can be out in the street
And
making
photograph.
pictures and
Yeah.
and adding to that pile.
You often shoot analog, and I want to just quickly ask you, like, what does analog give you that digital does not?
An archive.
An
I love
archive.
the physical, like archive. Like behind the camera now I'm looking at like all the binders that I've kind of accumulated, and I just always have imagined like when I'm old and just having like a closet full of just like binders where it's just like all of my negatives. And it's like, this is like my life's work. Whereas like digital, you'll have like hard drives. And it's just like not as exciting. There's something like, you know, very romantic about finishing a roll and like pulling it out of your camera, and at the end of a good day having like a handful of rolls where like you can see your productivity, and you have to wait to see if like, your failure gets put off to when the scans come in. Whereas with digital, I can like look at my failure as soon as the day is done, or
And
immediately.
in terms of like vision, like what is it for you that makes you shoot analog? Because it has a totally different approach, right? Like there's not this speed or this continuous click 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 that you are kind of tend to do with digital. Like, what does it do it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that isn't the thoughtfulness and like it's slowing me down. That's not really true for me. Like I'll shoot the same amount of photos if it's digital or analog. I've always approached it like if I'm about to take a picture and I'm like, oh, I can't take this, like maybe I should wait because this is going to cost me, then that's when I should start thinking about going digital, because if it's preventing me from taking pictures, then it's like a hindrance and not like something that allows me to take photos. So I feel like the look, yeah, there's a film look, but I do think you could probably get a digital photo to look like a film photo if you try hard enough. There are a lot of people who edit like digitally, and it looks very digital, and that's a big turnoff for me. But it might not be a turnoff for them. So who am I to say how you should edit your photos? For me, it's not my thing to make it look super sharp and synthetic and you know that digital look. But if you like it, go for it.
And if you had to start everything again now, like what would you do differently?
Start earlier. Man, I would start when I was like 10 years old, maybe before. I started when I was 1 years old. It's such like a photographer's thing to be like, man, I wish I started when I was doing this, when I was having this in my life, when I was like, you know, and like you just think back to all those moments you had where you're just like, oh man, that would have been like it's something I wish I would have started a lot earlier. I started when I was like mid 20s, maybe.
But that's still.
Yeah, I know people will start when they're like 16. And I was like, man, when you're 16, you're going through your adolescence, your transformative years, and like, you're still hanging out with all your friends from high school. Like, man, how cool would that have been?
Fair enough. And final question, in a world full of images, what does it still mean to being out there for you?
In a world full of images, what does it mean for me to be out there? It's kind of just like working on the discipline, working on the medium, trying to focus on the input, trying to find joy, trying to, enjoy myself and have fun with it. It's like football or soccer, like why do people play soccer if they're not going to go to the Premier League? That doesn't make any sense. It's like, no, they're just
I
doing it
guess.
because they want to go play football, you know? Like I
Mm,
just want to go take pictures. Like that should be it. Like that should be enough. I'm not trying to be Daniel Arnold. I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to be like it would be great if I could be, but if I'm just out taking pictures and having fun, then that that should be enough,
that should be
hopefully.
enough. Okay. Paulie, you actually burned all of my questions. So thank you once again for being with me today. And just like a very final message again to everybody who's watching, please keep liking and subscribing because we need your support to continue doing this. Thank you, Paulie, and see you next time.
Thank you.